Hello YouTube. Sorry for the poor video quality. I'm still trying to get situated here. Now, today I wanted to talk about, back to my concepts and everything, the conceptual reality. This is going to be a little different. This is going to be sort of a calculation of what I have been talking about, and hopefully shed some enlightenment on the things and the topics that I've been discussing. Okay. Now, one thing that I want to make clear out there, okay, is that Eurocentrics are just as wrong as Afrocentrics. Yes, I'm going into this little tangent again. But it'll work out. It's going to be a little different. There's going to be a twist to it, so it's okay. But anyway, the Nazis were no more Hindu than Runoko Rashidi is Buddhist. Okay? Now I say this because Nazis used the swastika and they did evil acts with it, including cremation, which it's not necessarily against Hinduism, but it's against Zoroastrianism. You don't burn bodies. Secondly, I was reading a story about Runoko Rashidi, and it came up again because apparently my school has a class on African studies, or black studies is what they call it, and it's really interesting because they'll switch from using African to black in certain areas where it's gray. You know, generating this concept of oneness, which is alright, you know, if you would include everybody in it. But the fact that you're excluding people, you're being no better than the previous races. But anyway, I was reading a story about him, and he talked about how the tribesmen were coming up to him in India, and he was kind of scared, so he held on to his Buddha statue. Okay? First off, if he was a true Buddhist, he would know that Buddha, the actual original one, can't really pronounce the name, but I'll post the link. It's one of those names that's like you gotta get precise or people get upset about it. But is not a god. He's considered maybe a kami in Japan, the mixture of the Shinto and Buddhist beliefs. Secondly, Buddha's very big on concepts, going against them. Runoko Rashidi generates concepts, just like the Eurocentrics generate the concept of the Indo-Aryans being Indo-European, or just based on linguistics, which we all know that people speak languages that their ancestors probably learned or whatever. Now there is a genetic tie to India with Indo-Europeans, but there's also a genetic tie between Dravidians, Australoids, or whatever you want to call them, and the Indo-Aryans in India. 90% of them are genetically similar. Now, what I was looking at was on the Black History Month wall, was it stated that there's 160 million blacks in India. I have a problem with this. How are they defining black? Okay, because if she goes, as light as Barack Obama or even lighter, you'd have to raise that somewhere in the ballpark of 600 to 700 million. Okay, if you're going extremely dark, then you'd even have to take away many of the African Americans and many of the even some Africans, because they're just not light enough. Like the Bushman tribe, they're just not dark enough. Now, same thing with or Europeans trying to claim that Indians are, some of them are Indo-European. Okay, well, what are you getting this as? Because a lot of them are pretty dark, and yeah, there is a genetic tie maybe, but they're just they are an ethnic group of their own. Okay, and it really strains me on this issue, because this concept has divided India. Okay, a lot. Now, a lot of people say, well, not really, but yeah, it has, along with caste system, which is actually two different things. Okay, now, anyway, he would know that this is a concept. He is generating a concept based on a concept I call Afrikoid, or he called Afrikoid, which is what he calls the first and second migrations of blacks, his terminology of blacks, to India and around the world. He lumps them up in the name called Afrikoid, simply based on the fact that they share common similarities. Well, basically just dark skin. Now I went to the whole, you say dark haired people, Black Irish were called Black Irish because of their dark hair. Matter of fact, they're still around. They still call them that. Okay, so if anybody wants to say, well, no, the Black Irish means black, whatever, you go to Ireland and they'll tell you what it is. Okay, a person with black hair is going to come to you and say, well, I'm Black Irish. Okay, how are they wrong? They do have black hair, don't they? So how are they wrong? Okay, because they don't have black skin, not from Africa. Well, there's people who don't have black skin who were born on Africa and their ancestors have been there for generations. Okay, and you can say that they invaded, but technically they came from there because they had Africa there. So, alright. That also goes in the concept of the Eurocentrics who try to separate themselves from Africa. Sorry, we came from Africa. Okay, that's something you're going to have to deal with. Now, the problem is, in order to be a true Buddhist or a true Hindu, you'd free yourself from concepts, okay? Caste system's a concept. Anybody who adheres to the caste system in the most brutal fashion isn't a real Hindu. Or they're not the real, core center Hindus. Now, we can talk about ancestry and all that, but aside from the fact of what actually is, everything else is an emotional tie that invokes meaning. Okay, that's called a concept. You give a name to it, you have an emotional tie to it, you have what's actually going on, and that's called a concept. Okay? Parents give birth to their children. Okay? That's a fact. Okay, these children inherit genetic traits. Okay, that's also a fact. But it's also a concept to give importance on certain traits. Okay? We all die someday. Everything changes. One trait may be useful now, but it's not going to be useful forever. Okay, it never is. Alright, you're deluding yourself if you believe that. And one other concept is, okay, if you believe in God, you believe everything's ordained, okay, then technically all you're doing is shifting the concept idea of interdependence among human beings creating concepts and throwing it onto God. God's now the generator of concepts, but it's all still conceptual, okay? It's all like, okay, this is how it's going to be done, this is how we're going to look at it, this is how we're going to appear at it. The emotion that parents have to their children, their offspring, that's a concept, okay? Family's a concept. There are life forms that abandon their young in the wild, okay? And I'm not talking defective young, I'm talking healthy young. They abandon. Okay, they don't adhere to the concept that we have, family. Okay, nor do they care about, their ancestry. Okay, big deal, okay, I'm here. They got me here, so what? Where do we go from here? The past is important. Well, that's a concept. Okay, I'm sorry. How, it's done. Okay, there's no way if you say, oh, the past is great, or you say, oh, the past is correct, that's an emotional meaning. Concept doesn't mean shit. Okay, it is what it is, we're here. Okay, that's it. Alright, anything you try to impose on that is a concept. Okay, anything you try to impose, death itself is technically a concept. Okay, because there's several ways to look at it. You say, oh, it's cold, dark, bleak oblivion, or oh, it's beautiful, we die and get recycled back to the earth. Okay, both are emotional ties. One's invoking a negative, one's invoking a positive. The actual form that's happening, the actual reality is you're dead. Okay? No negativity about it. Nothing to be scared of. There's nothing to love about it. Okay? Anything love or death that you develop, or fear of death that you develop, is a concept created by nurturing from your evolutionary state long, long ago. They nurtured the idea of survival. And when you nurture that, it gets embedded and eventually becomes your nature. Okay? When you nurture a certain trait in a certain area of the world, okay, eventually people start inheriting that trait. Okay, they start getting better at it, or sexual selection. Okay, interdependence upon nature. Nature and yourself and everybody else around you help generate the reality that you have right there. Okay, it's just that's just how it is. Okay, any meaning that you divulge into it is just a concept. Okay. Villages are concepts. You have life forms that live out their life just in solitude. Okay, so the whole meaning of huddling together, being a herd, or being part of a village, or having a king, or even having alpha male, is a concept. Concepts not just banned to humans; they're banned to everything. Anytime you dub something inferior or superior, that is a concept. Okay, there is just what is. All right, any meaning you give behind it is just your concept. Okay? Not everybody shares the same concept. Okay? It's the whole parallax of reality. Okay? Different concepts look differently from different points of view, as well as different points of view look differently from different concepts. Okay? Nothing's never the same. Alright? And it always changes. Okay? Now, race is a big thing in America. Religion's a big thing. And like I said, if you don't believe in God, then you do have the interdependency on nature, but human beings, for the most part, I would throw out a percentage, but it's really hard to actually throw out a mathematical or numerical concept on the whole ordeal. But it's pretty much most of the reality is actually invented by you, okay? Whether it's inadvertently or inadvertently, okay? Inadvertently means you evolve a certain way just by your habits. You still cause that. You still cause your species or whatever to separate and evolve just by on the habits of your group. Okay, eventually it comes back to you. Okay, granted you may not want that, but that's just the rules of nature. All right, and you know, like I said, not wanting it and wanting it changes. Okay, different traits, different times are better than others, or even saying better is another concept, because one survives longer. But that's the reality. That's the reality right there. Whether surviving is a good thing or a bad thing is a concept. Once again, okay? And I know they sound crazy, but it is. Okay, and it's hardcore in your nature because of early life developing this concept. Okay, it's gotten so developed into you, it's just embedded into your nature. It's instinctive. Okay, but that instinct came from previous life forms who decided to feel a certain way, or inadvertently decided to feel a certain way. Okay, yes, I know they don't have consciousness, but to be honest with you, my theory on consciousness is it's instinct, basically. Okay, it's just that we are in a higher form, which is also a subjective concept to say it, but we are technically kind of in a higher form of it than, say, an ant. They still have instincts, okay? You know, that's just how they developed. That's how they came about. So you have the interdependency. So you either have nature and humans controlling reality, or life forms, or you have just strictly life forms actually causing their own reality, or you have a god, a creator god, or gods, or goddesses, or deities, or whatever, and they help create reality. And all that does, basically, the alpha male of any group influences his reality onto the subjective members or his subjects. Okay, and kings do it. Presidents do it, governments do it, priests do it, religious figures do it. They try to impose their concepts of reality onto you. Okay, and the people listen. Okay, because it's the alpha male. Okay, if God or gods or whatever are joined in the equation, all that does is shift who the alpha male is. Okay, the whole idea, this whole idea about what concepts are, is still concrete, even with a God. Okay, so there's no religion you can run to say, no, this isn't a concept, it's reality. No, it's a concept. Okay? Any emotional tie, any idea, any meaning you can come up with is just a concept. Okay? It's just the importance of, your race, your nationality, any union or empire you've ever been a part of is just a concept, and they don't last. Okay? Persian Empire didn't last, and it fell, unfortunately, or was replaced by something that kind of, well, I'm not going to get into that, but anyway, the Persian Empire unfortunately didn't last, the Roman Empire didn't last, the Soviet Union did not last. America is not going to last forever, okay? Continents don't even last forever, especially when they're based on concepts. There's no real defining what the hell a continent is, okay? You can't say that the broken islands are a part of this big, huge island over here, and without, saying, okay, well, this area is still attached technically to that area. Why is that not a concept? But that is. That is a part of the continent. I mean, you gotta really think about it. So even your whole, you want to claim to be European or African, that doesn't even last. The language that you're speaking won't even last. You won't even have words. The people who come after us eventually, they may or may not even have words for any of this stuff. Or they may have different words. They may define it differently. Okay, Africa used to be defined at the end of Egypt, and Libya was where Africa started, or the Nile River. Okay, then you also had Europe. Okay, Europe was the Ural Mountains. Some people claim that all of Russia and all the way into Siberia is part of Europe. Okay, and some people claim, if you want to go the Indo-European route, then you can say that Persia is part of Europe. Okay, or you can say it's not. You can say it's all just Eurasia or Afrasia or whatever you want to call it. Or you can just say it's Earth. It's all concepts, okay? And yeah, you can't survive in water and breathe. But that's because of the nature that your very, very ancient ancestors, from the time that they were, fish, reptiles, or whatever, actually developed the ability to lost their gills and started breathing oxygen because the survival of it was necessary to come on land because the ocean was getting too hostile. Okay, and eventually, you have the birds and whatever. Or you say God created it, which is still a concept because it was a concept created by God. He said, hey, I want something that will breathe and, they'll walk on land or whatever. So he created it. Okay, he created it. It was a concept. He took the form that was, gave it a name, mixed it around, changed the form of it, and created the concept known as life or mammal life. Or, well, technically you had mammals in the ocean, but whatever. Anyway, the whole point of it is it's basically just down to concepts. Okay, you want to look at the world this way, you want to look at the world that way, that's fine, but you got to be aware that you are just in a concept. Your concept is no better than anybody else's. Okay? It doesn't matter who you supposedly descended from. Okay? That all it means you descend from. The greatness that you try to inherit. If you ain't got greatness, which is also another concept that the people around you have to give to you. Okay? If they don't give that to you, then you don't have it. Even if they give it to you, it's still a concept. If they ever wake up and realize, well, I don't fucking give this to them, the concept ends. Okay, you can try to enforce it with bloody rule or whatever, concepts eventually end. Soviet Union tried doing that and eventually it collapsed from the inside. Gorbachev got in there, he grew up in it, he decided, well, this is bullshit. So after a couple of years, he slowly but surely dismantled the Soviet Union. Which kind of led Russia down the drain. So we actually, even though some people say, well, Russia still exists, so we still had a rival superpower, what happened is that actually, when it collapsed, it hurt Russia too. So Russia actually also tapered off, and basically America became the only superpower for a little bit. That's slowly starting to change with the rise of China and everybody else. But anyway, yeah. So Eurocentrics and Afrocentrics, they're bound to their concepts. Okay, none is better than the other. Sorry. Okay, it just isn't. Alright, you can draw the line here, they can draw the line there. Okay, you say, well, the first Europeans were African. Yeah, but the first Europeans were also the ones who started the Europeans. Technically, the first Europeans were Europeans. Okay, and you can also say, technically, we were all black once or whatever, so, you can't be racist against black people, but then black people can't be racist against white people. Alright? You can talk about the sun and all that. The sun burns out. Alright? Ice ages come. Granted, if the sun burned out, that would, bring about a pretty cold, long, long period that would never end because there's more likely never going to be a sun this close to our planet starting up anytime soon. We ain't got to worry about that for 5 billion years. So even the sun goes away. But ice ages, they come and they go. Lands flood. Continents themselves change. They drift. And the concepts that define them also change. So you can't really hold on to anything. The only important thing is you. Okay? Finding yourself. Okay? And then finding, and your community, people around you. Okay? But getting them to rely on, the community around you, only selecting those who look like you or those who believe such as you or those who, are from the same political faction is, that's a concept. You gotta get the reality. You live amongst people who are not going to look like you. In fact, looking like you is another concept. Okay, nobody truly looks like you. Okay? You have your own, people are going to be taller, they're going to be shorter, they're going to be fatter, they're going to be, thinner. They're going to have different hair, and they're going to be of the same people as you. Okay? They're going to have different languages, different beliefs. There's nothing you can do about that. There is nothing you can do about that. There is no such thing as a white community. There's no such thing as a black community. There's no such thing. These are all concepts. Okay, in the end. And people try, racists try, to strive and collect it. No, you got to think like this. We got to stay together. It's not going to work. Concepts end. Okay? They only arise out of a need. Okay? Unless the certain people are constantly being prejudiced against for certain reasons, like Germans were during World War II. So they actually, kind of banned, you had German Americans for a while, and they kind of said, well, we're not doing that no more. we're just going to be Americans. It ends. Okay? Same with racial divides. Once the races actually become more equal, they do tend to end. Okay? And then if it flips and one race becomes dominant over the other, then the dominant supposed group eventually dismantles itself. So even if you wanted to reverse, say, apartheid in South Africa, eventually the black South Africans are going to, their whole concept, it may take a couple decades, but it will collapse in on itself. Because you will have people who feel sympathetic for suppressing. Doesn't mean, the past is the past. You got to get over it. Okay? White people did the same thing. All right? They dismantled it, and it drifts away. Okay? So that's the price of dominance. Every dominant group, the Soviet Union, the Russian Soviets, any empire, the dominant group eventually starts to, because they take pride in their dominance, and they don't realize that they are slowly but surely imploding on themselves. They start having different concepts, and it's like, well, this is unfair what we're doing. Well, no, it's justified. Wars break out, the dominant group gets dismantled, and it dissipates, and their concept that they generated goes away. Okay, to be replaced by another concept, but that's just how it is. Okay, so it's futile. It's really futile to start up an empire, to start up a form of apartheid, to start up anything, because it will get dismantled. Okay, and even the concept of heaven and hell, they exist. There's concepts. Where do you draw the line? Okay, obviously, if angels can come to earth, demons can come to earth, angels can go to hell, humans can go to hell, humans can go to heaven. There's a connection somewhere. So where would you divide it? Would you say, okay, this is where it stops? Does it stop? Do you enter heaven the minute you die? Do you enter heaven the minute you walk through the gates? Okay, supposed gates. Okay, where does it start? What's the connection from the gate to your dead body? Is that a bridge? That's a connection. How is it separate? It's not separate. Okay, same with hell. It's not separate. Eventually there's a connection between the two. Between the three. I mean, technically, if you believe in that stuff. I don't. But the whole ordeal is that you're being taught concepts against your will. You're being taught to view the world in a way that you probably wouldn't view it as unless you were forced to view it. Okay? They have influenced you. They influenced me. They influence everybody. Okay? Racists and religious fanatics are the biggest ones who try to influence people. Okay? And you may think, oh, well, no, what he's saying is true. Those people did try to influence. You're being influenced by him. You need to make up your own mind. Okay? What have you gone through? All right? And it's like, well, you're just trying to divide us. Technically, you're already divided. You're separate beings. Okay? That's the reality. You're separate. You're your own unit. Technically, you can even say that you're separated within yourself because you're made up of atoms. So technically, in a way, you're a concept. The concept of matter, it gave itself a name. We had consciousness. Okay? And anything that's separated, in order for two things to be united, they have to develop under a concept. They work together in unison. It's a symbiosis. Okay? That develop within groups, within nationalities, within religions, within family, within species, within planets even, and galaxies. Okay? You think it's all separate. Okay, galaxy over here, galaxy over there, but you have separate stars in between the two. Okay? Where do you draw the line? Well, it stops being clustered over here. Technically, it stops being clustered in the middle of the galaxy, and it spirals out. Okay, so how do you know that's not part of a big, huge spiral? It's just a little further out. Now, I know that's going off in a tangent, but I really just want people to think about how much stuff they believe is concrete, and it turns out it's not. It just isn't. Okay? And that is the path of a true Buddhist, a true Hindu, a true pantheist, a true atheist. Okay, a lot of people give atheists shit, man. They think outside the box like it's nothing. Okay? And there's atheist Hindus. There's atheist Buddhists. Pantheists, technically we're still atheists. Okay? There's, and when I know I throw in Hinduism in there, but I'm really talking about specific parts of Hinduism. There are, other parts that I, don't agree with. I don't worship Vishnu. I don't worship Shiva. I don't worship Krishna. I believe these are all concepts created by either us, or even if they exist, the whole path of the fact that they're powerful or they come to knowledge, so therefore that makes them great. It's a subjective consciousness. Technically, they're the same as you. Okay, they're name and form. That's all they are. Okay, whether you love them or hate them, that's what they are. All right, I'm not bashing on people who believe that. I'm not going to bash on people who believe in all their Christianity or nothing like that. But that's one thing I value about Hindus is you can actually sit down and have a pretty interesting discussion on what exists and what doesn't. And it's pretty interesting. Same with Buddhists. Same with atheists. Okay, many of them. Some of them don't. Some are very hardcore and they've shut themselves off completely, and I kind of feel bad for them. Okay, when I get into discussions, I like to view reality from their point of view, the parallax. Okay, this person views reality as if God exists. So I want to see, what that's like. Okay, I want to argue from that point of view. Then I bring them out to my point of view, in which everything is one, which is still a concept, but so is everything being separated. Because technically you can say, well, okay, yeah, we're all separated. I have separate atoms. But separation in itself could be considered a concept because obviously I'm not separated. I am one being. At least I perceive myself to be that way. So the concept can go either way. It's all on how you want to look at life. It's all on how you want to divide it. Okay, the lines of reality, the lines of this world, everything in it, is about as concrete as the line between the beach and the ocean. It changes. 1 minute you have the high tides and the beaches disappear almost completely. The next minute you have low tides, and there's more beach than there normally would be. But even at the very, very edge of it, the water ebbs and flows, and the line constantly changes. So I just want people to think about that. Think about the concepts that you have inherited. Make sure that you're following the concept you want to follow, because in the end, every concept, every one of them, goes away. Fades away, brings about a new concept. That's it. Anyway, YouTube, see you later.